prominent part of the Persona series is the social links. It is present in Persona 3 and 4 and rebranded as the confidante system in 5. These are small visual novel style side stories that helps to make the setting feel alive and lived in. Some of them even have direct connections to the main story. A common recurring theme in the Persona series is how a soul can grow by cultivating a variety of bonds, and this is represented by the variety of characters that you meet on the social links. Each social link has an arcana attached to it. While this could just be a mechanic for the Persona fusion system, each one of the social links does connect to the symbolic meaning of the arcana they are attached to, and this is what this video will explore today. For this video, we will explore the social link arcana from number 0 to number 5. From this point on, the video will have heavy spoilers for Persona 3, 4, and 5. It will cover everything from the main plot, social links, confidant, and even some of the secrets in the game. If you don't want spoilers, head out now. This is your only warning. With that, social link, go! The fool is portrayed as a vagrant or a traveler on the road. This image of journeying is meant to represent new beginnings, life, or a transitional period. Reversed, it can mean lack of restraints or discipline, recklessness, naivete, uncertain relationships, or risk-taking. When you calculate for your birth arcana, you can't ever get the Fool, which is number 0. That is because the Fool is where everyone starts in life. In terms of social links, it is linked with the reformation of the Seas, the formation of the investigation team, and meeting Igor. For these characters, they are starting a new journey in the company of their friends. The Seas found themselves a surprising number of new recruits, and have enough members to start exploring Tartarus. The investigation team dedicate themselves to tracking down the culprit and to save the people thrown into the Midnight Channel. Igor is eager to assist you with your rehabilitation, and freely grants you the use of the Velvet Room. The most interesting part about this arcana is the point where you max it out. Up to that point, your team of Persona users had been operating under assumptions that would later turn out to have disastrous consequences. The wild card and his allies would also be betrayed by someone who they assumed was their ally. The Seas assumed that by killing the full moon shadows they could end the Midnight Channel, but they were misled by Ikutsuki, who tricked them into releasing the parts of Nyx. The social link maxes out when the Seas resolve to face Nyx, regardless of Ryoji's warning that Nyx could not be defeated. The investigation team believed that they knew everything that was happening in the Midnight Channel, which led to a premature judgment of Namatame. They did not realize that the information they were working with were half-truths fed to them by Adachi. It maxes out when the investigation team decide against taking revenge on Namatame. Joker believes that Igor was helping the Phantom Thieves and that his rehabilitation would lead to his freedom. But in truth, Igor had no intention of letting Joker succeed in his wager, rigging it from the start. It maxes out when Igor reveals his true identity as the God of Control. The magician is usually portrayed with one hand pointed to the sky and the other pointed to the earth. There are also portrayals of the 4 elements. This is used to signify the ability of the magician to bridge the gap between heaven and earth, whether it is through great talent, resourcefulness, inspiration, focus, or self-confidence. Reversed, it can mean manipulation, poor planning, untapped talents, immaturity, lack of motivation, arrogance, or poor timing. Kenji was very enthusiastic in his pursuit of older women. He had some elaborate plans to court the teacher he fell in love with. Some of these were long-term plans like entering college and getting married. Kenji would go into great detail imagining his future with the woman he loved. This would lead him to misunderstand his teacher's intentions. He eventually realizes that he was more in love with the idea of being with a teacher than the actual woman. Yosuke is the man with a plan. Whether it is visiting a nearby city or helping out with a sale, Yosuke always keeps you busy. Despite what his shadow says, Yosuke seems to lean into his role as the manager's son. However, this would also lead to him being manipulated by people who only befriended him to ask favors. Yosuke is conflicted by his feelings for Saki and his great jealousy at the protagonist's talents, but he literally beats the feelings out of him. Where once he thought he was wasting his time in Inaba, Yosuke came to realize that all days were important and he shouldn't be wasting any of them. Morgana was confident in his abilities as a thief and acts as the mentor of the group as they infiltrate the palaces. However, conscious about not having a goal in his life, he invented a goal for himself, which was to become human. This would prove detrimental for Morgana, as he placed this goal in front of helping the Phantom Thieves. His immaturity shows in his envy of Futaba, resentment of Ryuji, and treating Haru like a replacement for the Phantom Thieves. But he realizes that he belongs with the Phantom Thieves and is able to lead them to their true destiny. The High Priestess wears robes and sits with a book. She represents intuition, the divine feminine, patience, and wisdom. In Persona 3 and 4, the High Priestess can be seen in the negative space. This could be used to represent the subconscious mind and mystery. Reversed, this can mean secrets, disconnection from intuition, withdrawal, or silence. Fuka's skill with computers and technology made her an invaluable member of SCRAWLfx. Discerning enemies made her instrumental as a support Persona user. However, her quiet demeanor made her an easy target for bullies. She is also a pessimist, being a harsh judge of her domestic abilities and her non-feminine interests in electronic devices. But with her time spent with SCRAWlfx, she is able to gain more confidence in herself. She was able to realize when she was having negative thoughts and stop them before more could creep in. Yukiko had trouble understanding and articulating her feelings about her family's inn. While Yukiko prepares to leave her hometown, she slowly realizes that she truly loved the inn she grew up in. She just didn't like how everything was decided for her and believed leaving was her only option. But when her inn got threatened by shady reporters, she was able to handle the situation diplomatically. She decides to keep working at her family's inn, not because it's what everyone wants for her, but because it is what she chooses to do. Makoto struggled with the expectations of being the class president. She forgot who she was both as a person and as a girl. She was able to find a new friend, Eiko, because of her love of cute characters. But when Eiko gets a shady-looking boyfriend, Makoto felt conflicted. She wants Eiko to be happy, but suspects that her boyfriend might be taking advantage of her. In the end, she decides to act, regardless of how this could impact her relationship with Eiko. Makoto decides not to let her studies and society's expectations of her disconnect her from the outside world, as she decides to pursue a job in law enforcement. The Empress Arkana is shown with either exaggerated hips or her legs spread open. This is meant to symbolize the feminine, beauty, nature, nurturing, creativity, reassurance, sexuality, and fertility. Reversed, this can mean creative block, dependence on others, smothering, and losing willpower and strength because you place too much effort on the affairs of others. Because of Mitsuru's sheltered and pampered life, she knows very little of the real world, like fast food and movies. However, despite her aloof personality, she does show concern for the members of SCRAWlfx. With so much responsibility placed on her shoulders, she does feel overwhelmed and she lets her responsibilities decide her life, regardless of how she feels about it. Eventually, the motorcycle that she used to emulate running away from her feelings and future, she sets aside for she is done running away. Margaret has interest in seeing the protagonist's soul grow, and she had a creative way of imparting lessons, mainly taking the form of her requests. Margaret couldn't conceive of how her sister Elizabeth would abandon her duty to pursue her own goals. In fact, she was planning on dragging her back. But to do this, she needed to understand why she left, and she felt that she would be able to do that with the help from the protagonist. Eventually, she gets a newfound respect for her sister. She was committed to a goal which may take an unknowable amount of time to complete. She decides to respect her sister's decision, and to do the same if she needs to. Haru found herself incapable of doing anything as everyone in her father's company scrambles for power. She dislikes the unethical business practices and toxic work culture that her father fostered, but she doesn't know what she can do about it. To help her cope with her helplessness and the death of her father, she turns to growing vegetables. Working on her garden gives her the answers she needs to turn her father's company around. She presents the fruits of her labor to the vice president, who is reminded of how the company used to be when Haru's grandfather was in charge. Haru becomes more confident in speaking her mind and clear in what she wants to do with her life. The Emperor is portrayed with a royal scepter and a globe, signifying authority, a firm hand, father figures, discipline, and stability through the power of action. Reversed, it can mean an abuse of power, possessiveness, inflexibility, or a lack of self-control. Hidetoshi's abrasive personality and rigid adherence to the rules is born from his father being turned into a scapegoat. He came to believe that power is the only thing that matters in the world. He put his own ambitions forward and paid little attention to how people viewed him. But when his friend was accused of a crime, he decided to stand up for his friend, even if this meant compromising his future. Where before he saw his father as a victim of his own powerlessness, Hidetoshi began to admire him for his values. Kanji had great insecurities with his masculinity. He is haunted by his father's last words, as he is confused by what it means to be a man. He is embarrassed of his feminine hobbies and overcompensates with an aggressive attitude, but he soon finds people that appreciate and admire his work. They even want to learn from him. But when he came to a point where his insecurities would paint the people around him as liars, he decided to take charge. As Kanji becomes more comfortable with himself, he no longer allows the perception of others to dictate his actions. Yusuke wanted to continue on his path as an artist, but is afraid of craving the acclaim that Madarame was so obsessed with. He had to learn that desiring the approval of others was a signal that his passion for art was growing. If he wanted to succeed, his art had to go beyond just himself. Yusuke learned that the human heart had both ugliness and beauty. He could not dwell on just one. Where his first painting was called Desire, he then changed his painting to reflect the truths he found, rebranding the painting as Desire and Hope. The Triple Cross is a prominent symbol of the Hierophant. Some say it is meant to represent the Holy Trinity of the Catholic faith. Others say it is meant to represent the roles of the Hierophant as Sovereign Priest, Supreme Judge, and Sole Legislator. Others still say that it represents the values of faith, hope, and love. Regardless, it is a symbol which represents the conventional, process, social structures, tradition, morality, or spiritual wisdom. Reversed, it can mean restrained by structure, a loss of control, misunderstanding, challenging the status quo, breaking convention, or questioning tradition. Bunkichi and Mitsuko tried to prevent the cutting down of the tree that their son planted. They did not want to lose an important memento of their deceased son. Because of their old age, they often find themselves living in the past and forgetting important memories. However, they realized that their son, who was a teacher, would not want anything getting in the way of the education of the students. They are thrilled to learn that the tree would be relocated somewhere else instead of being cut down. Dojima's constant pursuit of his wife's killer was a convenient excuse to neglect his duty as a father. He avoids Nanako because of her resemblance to Chisato, his wife. It is hard for him to find something to talk about with his nephew, but over time he opens up to him. He believes he is not fit to be a father, but in truth he is running away from his responsibilities. Dojima had one chore in the house, filling the mugs with coffee. It was symbolic of his place in the family. As Dojima gives the protagonist his own mug, he is reasserting his place in the home and officially welcoming the protagonist into his family. Sojiro acts as a kind of surrogate father to both the protagonist and Futaba. However, when Futaba's biological family tries to extort Sojiro, he is at a loss at what he should do. When Futaba's attempt to help creates a misunderstanding between the two, Sojiro has to accept the fact that he has been using his work as a way to remain distant from his two wards. He decides to fight for his family and is able to convince the social workers that the claims against him are falsified. And that's it for the first 6 arcanas. Thanks for watching. The other arcanas will be covered in the future videos, so if that interests you, consider subscribing. Remember, these interpretations are completely subjective. Admittedly, some of the social links fit their assigned arcana better than others, so feel free to share your own interpretations in the comments below. I'll try to finish these videos in a stricter time frame. Until our paths cross again, see you, Wildcard.